Hey, it's Leslie from Skinny Decaf Latte, and it's been a little while since my last video that I uploaded on 23andMe. I have been totally obsessed with genealogy since that video. I am always on Ancestry.com because I built my family tree, or I'm building it. On some of the branches, I've gone back as far as the 1500s. Um, Most of them I've gone back to the 1800s, so that's really interesting. What else? I've been on GEDmatch.com quite a bit because they have some really fun programs you can run your DNA through, which I mentioned in the previous video. I'm going to have another video shortly about those experiences, but today I wanted to share with you one site in particular that's associated with health information, connected with health information, because my blog is actually a health and wellness blog. So this I found fascinating. I found it just kind of mentioned in passing on one of these forums I was reading through, and the name of the site is Nutrahacker. I'll put the link below. But basically, once you get your raw DNA from definitely from 23andMe. I think you can also do it with your DNA from Ancestry.com. You can upload it to this site for, I believe it was $35. And they break down your DNA, your genes, but it's for health information. So one thing that I was kind of bummed about was I did my test through 23andMe after they no longer provided health information. So this site, though, from what I've gathered, is even more detailed than that original analysis with 23andMe. So what it does is it looks at each gene and it'll look for any mutations, and it will tell you if you have mutations, if you have they give you three different things. They tell you just a general report, and there's actually, if you want to test it out, a free report, which will give you, I'd say, maybe 40% of the information. But I definitely think it's worth paying for the full report. So you get that, and then you also get, there's another report that will let you know if you respond to certain medications, if your body reacts, whether it can receive or reject certain medicine. So it was kind of mind-blowing, because many of the things on my list that had genetic mutations, some of the genes, the things that were mentioned to avoid, and some of the consequences were things that I had already noticed going on. I just knew that I was sensitive to certain things, but I didn't know that it was this deep. I didn't know the scientific explanation for it. I just knew that my body didn't really react or handle certain things. So I'll just give you an example. Let's see. I'll start with alcohol. So I don't think I considered myself having a low tolerance necessarily when I started drinking in college, just socially. But there were many times where I got sick to the point of, but I didn't consider that an allergic reaction or sensitivity. I just thought, that's what happens. This girl's bothering me. Sorry, y'all. Anyway, in the past year, I'd say I noticed that I've become really sensitive to alcohol, and I specifically noticed that after I would drink, and I can't really narrow it down if it's liquor or wine, or tequila, like margaritas, that's liquor. But I noticed, hit or miss, that I would get this really sharp pain in my jaw all the way up to my ear, and it really hurt. So one of the things on this report says that one of my genes, let's see, the gene is called SOD2, and I have a 2 out of 2 risk highlighted on it in red, so it let me know there's a mutation on it, and basically what it says, not basically, it does say, the explanation for the gene function is mitochondrial superoxide. The consequence with the mutation on this gene, which I have mutation on it, 2 out of 2, is decreased gene function. Noise-induced hearing loss was associated with more gray matter shrinkage in 76 individuals who reported chronic high levels of alcohol or just alcohol consumption. So it actually tells me I should avoid alcohol and loud noise because I have a greater chance of hearing loss because of this gene mutation. And then it goes on to tell you, it encourages you. So if you have a mutation, it tells you what to avoid, and then it will give you things to encourage you to take to, I guess, support this mutation, or not support it, but you know what I mean. So it says I should have manganese, vitamin E in a certain form. So that was interesting because, I mean, I noticed the pain. I knew I was sensitive to alcohol, but to see it say that I had a mutation on a certain gene that puts me at risk for hearing loss and I should avoid alcohol and loud noise for that reason is interesting. And I know just over the years my mom is very sensitive to loud noise, and I have some great uncles that went partially deaf in their ear and they were drinkers. So, and that's on the other side of the family. And so what's interesting is both of those genes have a mutation on them. So that's one example. Let's see. Another, I know that I don't do well on a high carb, specifically sugar, because I've been a sugar monster my whole life, and part of my blog is to talk about how I let that go. But it actually says to avoid a high carb diet because it lists the gene. Let's see. The gene is G6PC2. And its function is it encodes an enzyme belonging to the glucose 6-phosphatase catalytic subunit family. Anyway, this is responsible for an internal membrane system. It's connected to the glucose, glucose pathways. And it's allowing the release of glucose into the bloodstream. The family member encoded by this gene is found in the pancreatic islets. So it says that I have a mutation on that gene, and that the consequence is I have fasting blood glucose level. It's higher. So I have a high fasting blood glucose level. And so it says to avoid high carb diets, and it encourages chromium and vanadium. I don't know what vanadium is. I know what chromium is. So, which is interesting because a nutritionist actually told me, based on some feedback, just me sharing some health concerns, or just what's going on, that I go on a low carb, high protein, healthy fat diet. Not really diet, just basically lifestyle. It's how I should eat personally for my body. So it was interesting to see that on there. I'll share one more with you all. Let's see. High carb, calcium. I'm supposed to avoid MSG, which we all should. I'm supposed to avoid nicotine because there's a mutation and the consequences increase nicotine intake. So basically addiction is already built in for nicotine. I just instinctively have always avoided nicotine. Apparently I also can't handle heroin because there's something mentioned on that, which I've avoided that too. What else? There was something on here that was really interesting. So sometimes I'll just mention things that seem random, like I'm supposed to avoid cumin and grapefruit because it blocks. What does the report say? Anyway, it blocks the receptor on one of my genes. Something, oh, that's what it was. I have to find it. It's on another chart. But basically, I'll make this quick. I went to the doctor not too long ago, and one of my results was that I had incredibly low vitamin D. The number was 17. Ideally, you're supposed to have between 30 and 100, closer to the 100, and I had 17. One of my genes had a mutation on it, and it was the gene responsible it was the receptor for vitamin D. So it was interesting just to see after the fact that, oh, I have a mutation on it, and the consequence was difficulty absorbing vitamin D, and it did give me recommendations. And I just had that doctor's report saying that I had low vitamin D. So it's fascinating stuff. I highly recommend this site. If you want to take your DNA studies further, I'm really getting into personalized nutrition and how I looked into the blood type diet, and that's kind of general because it's blood. You know, I'm O positive, which is the universal type, the oldest blood type supposedly. But even that had some pretty fascinating information, and a lot of the stuff on my blood type diet was also parallel with some of the things on this my genetic breakdown report. So yeah, if you're just looking for something, I guess, different to do with your DNA, raw DNA information, and you weren't able to get your health report from 23andMe, and even if you did, I would recommend going through this site because it's really detailed and it's really fascinating. And based on what I know about myself in my recent doctor visits, this is really accurate. So it's just empowering to have this information. I'll put the links below. Bye.